Why are they teaching that we evolved from an ape? The ape is our grandpa in public schools. It's important that the people know that the church is not neutral on evolution. If we were not evolved from apes and we were created in the image of God, that means God is our king and we are princes and princesses. And to me, that's so beautiful. And it's given me so much confidence in my life, knowing that I am a literal son of God and knowing that at my core, not up here in my head, but in my heart. It's easier to fool people than convince them that they have been fooled. And that's what Shane tells us, is keep our hearts open and our minds open.
Let the truth come forward, but not this false narrative that is supported by basically evil designing men and women.
Welcome in here on Zion Media. We are joined by a special appearance. That's right, the real MacGyver. You haven't seen him for a minute. He's been in the process of moving. He moved back to Utah, or he moved back to Utah. He moved to Utah. He was born here, so I could say back to Utah. And I have him on because on the Zion Media team, he's the resident nerd scientist that likes to read textbooks on the universal model. And so I have him on to ask some questions and use his science nerd brain as we talk about the topic today. Again, joined by David the Lion Douglas and Jeremy. I'm not even going to try to say his last name because I want to keep saying Michael or Michelle, but it's Mitchell, Michelle.
Very nice.
Mitchell, like Michelin. But this is part 2 of the series, a small series that we're doing on the topic of evolution. And I know there is so many ideologies out there that are false. They're wrong. They're false narratives. I think Jeremy said this on our pre-show. He said, I had a lot of people get mad at me when I said that evolution's a lie. So you can get mad at me. Evolution's a lie. It is not real. It is not true. We didn't evolve from apes. Okay. So we're going to walk through with Jeremy and his presentation. We're going to talk about evolution. But before we jump into the presentation, I want Jeremy to be able to plug his book. He's written a book. He's got pallets of this book. So here is Jeremy's book. This is where you go to get it. Hey, support our guy, Jeremy. It's an awesome book. And if you're homeschooling your kids, or if you got grandkids, this is a great book for you to get them, to teach them truth so that they don't get indoctrinated with the false narratives of the public school system that talk about evolution. And yeah, BYU, quit teaching evolution. Throw it out. Like, let's just teach the truth from here on out. How about that? That's a good idea. So Jeremy,
Thank you,
back
Shane.
on. And
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for being, I just felt like you were like my wingman or like my bodyguard if I was to walk into a crowd and say evolution's false. And that felt really good. You're like, okay, I'm backing you up. I like that. That was awesome.
It doesn't make any sense. The Spirit doesn't testify of its truthfulness. So I don't even need to read any books to figure that one out. Evolution's a lie. Okay. Talk to us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so it is about aligning science and religion, if you can see it here. I'm holding it in my hand. And that's the crux of the issue. Aligning science and religion, a journey to, I have to read it, even though I wrote it, a journey to discover the scientific evidences confirming faith. So it is a little bit deceiving, and David has introduced me as the dinosaur guy, but it is about the creation of the earth. It is about why are they teaching us this millions of year theory? Why are they all constantly starting with our children? And that's why it's so personal to me, is I have young children who love dinosaurs. And from 2 years old on, they're being taught that these are millions of years old. That's the first line of the dinosaur books, all the kid books. Millions of years ago, these animals lived. That's the first line. Every museum, it just gets old because it's everywhere. And so I'm like, man, I'm going to teach. I'm going to share this message. I have to. And it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into the presentation.
Yeah, so pre-order at dinosaursandscripture.com, 20% off. We have a coupon code for Zion Media, Zion code for 25% off. We pre-sold a bunch, but we want to get more out there. So we have, like you said, a pallet coming in. Yesterday we did talk about the missing links, and there was an awesome QR code. If you guys have had a chance to watch that video called Genesis Impact, it debunks every single missing link or so-called hominid that they say is our great-great-great-grandma, right? And for those of you that are doing genealogy, and my dad does genealogy every day, we know that Adam is our first father, and it says that in the scriptures. So we talked about the truth being hard to handle and the truth being opposed. And we've seen that in our world this week with that shooting. When someone speaks the truth, it offends people. And it's so sad, but the same thing happened to Nephi. Nephi had spoken hard things against the wicked. After the Laman and Lemuel complained, he said, according to the truth and the righteous, I have justified and testified that they should be lifted up at the last day. Wherefore the guilty taketh the truth to be hard, for it cutteth them to the very center. And so if you're righteous, you wouldn't take it. It's because their attitudes, their ideas, and their actions do not align with the gospel. And so Laman and Lemuel were guilty, and they wanted to kill Nephi. They tied him up multiple times, once in the wilderness on the way back from Jerusalem, and once on the boat. One time they were going to leave into the beasts, and the other time, the boat almost sunk. So back to current events, and I don't want to belabor the point, and I don't think we're going to play this video, but violence is the last refuge of the incompetent, which was an interesting quote that I thought relates to the scriptures and to our day. So Charlie Kirk mentions a lot of the radical left, and I wanted to ask, what is the radical left? Because he blames the radical left for a lot of lies and dangerous things. And I believe it is any lie that people are espousing and trying to use it to avoid looking to God. And anyone that is taking lies and applying them to their lives, and that becomes their gospel. So Satan changed the truth of God into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. So in Romans, I love that. But Satan has a strong hold on the people, and we're seeing that, and it's kind of disheartening. He beheld Satan, and Moses beheld Satan, and he had a great chain in his hand, and it veiled the whole face of the earth with darkness. And he looked up and laughed, and his angels rejoiced. So the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one.
Jeremy, did you go to the vigil?
I didn't make it to the vigil. I know there's another one on Saturday. I really wanted to go, but I had four kids.
I went to the vigil, and his favorite scripture was shared there, and I knew it was Romans, and this looks like it's it. So I wasn't sure. That's just amazing of you to share this.
Yeah, this the reason that I changed a lot in my presentation, added a bunch of stuff because this shook me, and I had a couple friends that it's just been hard for the world to see someone speaking truth, and I hope that we can continue to preach as he did and be more bold. And that's what Shane is bringing to the world, is this boldness, which is what Charlie did. I mean, he was bold and said, I'm going to speak truth, and I'm not going to worry about offending people. But Satan is very crafty and very clever, right? So once again, the Bible teaches Satan is the god of this world. So I don't want to dive too much into it because we're kind of starting to move on past this. This was yesterday's slide, but they have found the shooter. So once again, we've seen this in the scriptures. The scriptures teach us, if we're reading and understanding the Book of Mormon, we know that the wicked are going to get angry, and the wicked take the truth to be hard. So Nephi was grieved for the hardness of their hearts in verse 8. And then because their younger brother was speaking to them. And then in 9, he says, how is it that ye have not hearkened unto the word of the Lord? How is it that you have forgotten that you have seen an angel? So he references them constantly to these miracles. How is it that you have forgotten what the great things the Lord has done for us, delivering us out of the hands of Laban and getting us the record? And later on, he'll reference Moses crossing the Red Sea and how that miracle And so I want to talk later about some of the miracles that we need to look to the scriptures as literal experiences. These Moses literally crossed the Red Sea, because these can be anchor points for us sometimes in our life. I know we focus on the spiritual testimony, the spiritual confirmation to our hearts, which is, I'd say, the most important. But sometimes we do need also those material. I mean, we have our physical bodies for a reason. It's to learn and to grow. And these physical experiences help with our testimonies as well. So then his brothers were angry with me. They bind me with cords, and they sought to take away my life, that they might leave me in the wilderness to be devoured by wild beasts. And so this has just confirmed to me once again that the truth is obscure. The truth is not always on the mainstream, not on the television. It's usually hidden. And that's why Isaiah, I believe, was so metaphorical with a lot of his things. And so we know the people love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. So they didn't want to have to change. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light. Neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. And I love light. Light is beautiful. I always every morning I open up the windows in my house and I just let the light in, right? Light's beautiful. And that comes from God. So ultimately the truth is going to set us free. And I think I had another video about this here, but I'm kind of feeling not to play these videos of Charlie today. If that's okay. So the truth will set us free. But one thing that's crazy is we are really being shooken by some of the lies that are shared, right? We're really being shook. The world is being just example is just the amount of abortions on this earth, or the amount of wickedness, or the broken homes. It's so sad. But it's interesting to see that in his Isaiah, he's saying that we are going to look upon him, Satan, narrowly, and consider him, is this the man that made the earth to tremble? Because he's just the master of lies, but he's nothing magnificent. He's nothing great. Not like the savior of the world. So I feel like it's kind of a negative starting to my presentation, because we're leaving off where we took off yesterday. It's a little bit of a downer. Are you guys feeling that?
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. We need to expose. So yeah, this is good.
Okay, so why are they teaching that we evolved from an ape? The ape is our grandpa in public schools. This is a page out of the book talking about the implementation. And in 1925, there was the Scopes monkey trial where a teacher was teaching evolution. And back then when we couldn't, you could unlock your doors. You'd leave your keys in the car. You weren't worried about your kids walking 4 houses away back in the early 1900s, back in the 1950s. They were teaching the Bible in every public school. And then the teacher was tried for teaching evolution. And it was highly publicized, and he was convicted, charged with violating the law. Now, since that time, the 1968s and 80s, is they began to actually go in reverse and start allowing evolution and banning the Bible. So the Supreme Court ruled that Arkansas was one of the first banning the teaching of evolution, violated the Establishment Clause. So they said you can't ban teaching evolution, and that's when it really inversed. And now it's being taught in every school in America. Every biology book, and I don't have my high school biology book next to me, but I love to show what's in it. And we did talk about that in the last presentation, right? But we also talked about the original man statement that's on this page. I just have a quick little blurb in the book. The book's only 142 pages, so we didn't have room to fit everything. But it's important that the people know that the church is not neutral on evolution. The original man statement in 1909, and they did come out with the church came out with another statement in 1925. So this is a big issue if the First Presidency is coming out and issuing statements on it. But I worry that they have not issued as much on it lately, which is why I think acceptance has grown exponentially. Okay, now this I think leads. What does the belief in evolution lead to? I believe it leads in the belief of this lack of caring for the sanctity of life, right? At the beginning of life and at the end of life, we have euthanasia, and we had abortion, of course, which is so sad that so many people are doing it out of convenience. They say that the majority of people that have an abortion are actually married with kids already, and they just can't afford another child. And I don't know if that statistic's 100% accurate, but Margaret Sanger founded Planned Parenthood, and she was a proponent of eliminating lesser species. She was a Darwinist. Okay. Margaret Sanger said the most serious charge that can be brought against modern benevolence, meaning us loving our neighbor like Christ taught, is that it encourages the perpetuation of defectives, delinquents, and dependents. These are the most dangerous elements in the world community, the most devastating curse on human progress and expression. She wanted to eliminate, and they actually focused on minorities in abortion at the beginning of Planned Parenthood.
You know what, Jeremy? There's so many people. So I was adopted as a baby, and I'm so grateful that my 14, 15-year-old mother, when she got pregnant, didn't abort me. And there's so many good families that are trying to adopt. And we need to really push the idea of adoption being a very godlike thing to do.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to plug that out there. Continue on.
Absolutely. I mean, adoption, there's so many parents right now that can't have children and they want to adopt, and it's so hard and expensive to adopt. And you're like, why do they make it so hard? And you can literally drop off a baby in Utah, any hospital, if after you have the baby and you say, I don't want it, and you don't have to abort it. And, I think it's founded in this belief that these are clumps of cells is the lie that they're told because of this evolutionary idea. We're just evolving. We're just apes, or these are just animals. And as a matter of fact, in all the genocides in the world, right, people are dehumanized. They're first told that they're animals. They called the Jews pigs, and they called anyway, Rwanda, they called them cockroaches. They start to dehumanize before you could actually. And so this is the page that they would not print my book because of this page in China. They refused to print it, and I changed the whole page. They still wouldn't print my book because the government is so hard on them, because I talk bad about Mao in here and how Mao killed millions of his own people. So most of the communist dictators believed in Darwinistic ideologies, such as Hitler. He believed in the superior Aryan race. And he actually, before the Holocaust, was killing off the disabled people, over 100,000, they estimate. As a matter of fact, did I mention this last time? My grandpa was 99. Yeah, I did. He actually had a kid in his class that went missing one day. He had a stutter, and he came to class, and he was gone. The kid was gone. And this was the same year that they were implementing these practices, and without telling their parents. Charles Darwin's book, if you look under the title, it says Preservation of Favored Races, because it's on the origin of species, but in the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. So I believe it's at its core, it's a racist ideology, because it's teaching that the lesser evolved apes came out of Africa, or the cradle of life. And then into school shootings, sadly. So one of the first of many, many school shootings that we've had in America, it's just sick, was Eric Harris was wearing a shirt that day that said natural selection. And he did it on Hitler's birthday. I mean, this is in 1999, and I dug really deep, and I wanted to find out what happened, what was his ideology. And I'm going to also dig into this new shooter they found with Charlie Kirk, and find out what was his ideology, what was his beliefs and his background. And I know he's from Utah, which is so depressing. But as I dug really deep, it took me a while to find it, but I had to ask so many of the right questions. I said, when was evolution required teaching in Colorado? Because this is in Colorado. And they said they implemented it as a required a component of its public school science curriculum in 1995. Think about that. They were taught evolution every single year from 1995 till 1999. And then he wore that shirt, natural selection. And
So there's a direct correlation there.
Yeah, on his blog, he wrote, I want to eliminate the stupid, weak, dumb organisms. And he actually had a website back then, all sorts of things. Yeah, obviously they had violence and they were depressed and all those factors as well. Played a lot of direct correlation. So and I do want to turn it to a positive note now that we've been so negative. Is my shirt that I wore yesterday says made in the image of God. And if we were not evolved from apes and we were created in the image of God, that means God is our king and we are princes and princesses. And to me, that's so beautiful. And it's given me so much confidence in my life, knowing that I am a literal son of God and knowing that at my core, not up here in my head, but in my heart. And it's just been a game changer for me, helping me, like I said, with confidence, just knowing who I am. And hopefully everybody that's struggling can know that they are, but there's so much going against it. And people are confused when they go to school and get taught one thing, come home or go to church once a week, but they're at school five days a week and doing homework and they're taught different things. Obviously you're not taking biology all day, but in the biology textbooks and things. So let's go into some science about the science of fossilization and why there are these animals that have never changed or never evolved. Okay, so this is about the fossils that are called stasis. They're an anomaly to the scientists because they're like, whoa, these animals have never changed. They didn't evolve over millions of years. We got a shrimp here, a turtle, and the coelacanth. They say these were, fossilized millions of years ago in the rock, and today they're still alive. A shrimp, a coelacanth swimming around in our ocean, and a turtle. Same animal, never changed. As a matter of fact, there's a creation museum, and he has this display of the shrimp, and he's like, that shrimp I got was from a Chinese buffet. He's like, literally, we took it home from a Chinese buffet. It's just our normal shrimp. So the oldest fossil shrimp preserved with mussels, these were preserved in exquisite detail, and it came to rest on the seafloor. They say the animal is buried rapidly, but we have to know that is there anything fossilizing on the seafloor today? As an avid scuba diver, I've never seen anything like beginning to fossilize. So the shrimp is still a shrimp. And then the coelacanth, once again, was believed to be millions of years old, rediscovered by Marjorie Courtney in 1938. Actually, they caught it fishing. And they're like, whoa, now they're seeing it, scuba diving it everywhere. They call these living fossils because they're just such an anomaly. And this is the museum that has that display of the horseshoe crab. And the horseshoe crab today is exactly the same. And how can they say all these other animals evolved when the only ones we have alive and fossilized, all the evidence shows that they did not evolve. So we won't go into that interview. And that brings us to the fun topic, which is the dinosaurs, right? What happened to the dinosaurs? Did they live with man? We believe that Fred Flintstone was right, that he lived with dinosaurs. I don't know if you guys were Flintstone kids.
I love the Flintstones.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
I love
that he's not only writing it, but he's using it for work. Like he's actually utilizing it. I have a picture that I need to get into. I think, I don't know if that's on this presentation, but Peter Bruegel's Suicide of Saul painting from 1562 shows them writing on these things. So we have dinosaurs looking at the Noah's Ark, and we have this Delp footprint here, which I actually have a replica of it. We're going to talk a little bit about that. If you look very carefully, this is a human footprint and a dinosaur print touching. They are actually fossilized. Do you see the human print there? To the left?
There's a Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas, and they have this, I don't know if it's the same one as that, but they have a very similar, if not exactly the same, the original. So there's a lot of evidence that points against evolution, and it just gets suppressed. They actually tried to destroy. There were people that came down to Glen Rose, Texas, and were destroying fossil evidence and footprint evidence, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, there's a big history down there. And this is the first one that they found where it's actually touching, but they have been finding for over 100 years since the 1920s or 30s in the Great Depression. They would go and dig them up and sell them. And they found human prints and dinosaur prints all over. And you're right, there has been a huge controversy about, are these made up? And this one has actually been CAT scanned to verify it is accurate. And that one that Bob Wright's holding, he owns the Flood Museum in Nauvoo. I now own that, by the way. So if we ever do a museum, we're going to put it in it, which would be really cool. People could see it and touch it. That's just a replica. Yeah. Carl Baugh in Glen Rose, he's got the original. So I think I got my slides mixed up here. Oh, shoot. Oh, no, this is right. We want to talk about the Bible and the scriptures that talk about dinosaurs. First of all is Behemoth in Job 41. And 41 is Leviathan, and 40 is Behemoth. Now, some people think this is a mythical animal, or it's symbolic. And this is why I think it's a real animal, because God brings Job and says, where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? So God is kind of bringing Job for a minute, and he's saying, hey, let's have a chat. Who's in charge around here? Declare if thou hast understanding. You know, it's like if your teenage son wants to borrow the car keys and you're like, who pays the bills, son? Let's make sure you know who's right, who's in charge here. So he then mentions all the animals he created: the lion, the raven, the goat, the wild ass, donkey, unicorn, peacock, horse, hawk, and eagle. And I have an answer for the unicorn. And last time I gave a presentation, someone was mad at me for just leaving that as a cliffhanger. So I will say what I believe the unicorn is. And all you have to do is look at the Indian rhinoceros. The scientific name is Rhinoceros unicornis. So yes, I do believe the unicorn is a one-horned rhinoceros. So then he goes on and shares about Behemoth. So, which is a real animal. And real quick on the unicorn, it's so important that we take the scriptures as literal, because there's antagonists constantly saying the Bible's fake. The Bible talks about unicorns and dragons and all these animals that just aren't real. And so we've been able to establish that they are real animals. And that's why I have my shirt, Dinosaur Equals Dragon. We'll talk about dragons in another episode, which is a really fun topic for me. It blows people's minds when I share them. There's some of the things like the new, there's a brand new state park in Utah called Utah Raptor State Park, and it validates that dragon equals dinosaur. So that's a cliffhanger I'll leave there. So
also in Job 40, you mentioned 15, but all the way through 24, it talks about this behemoth. And in 17, it mentions he moveth his tail like a cedar tree. The cinders of his stones are wrapped together. I mean, I don't know of any animal that has a tail like a cedar tree, except for what you're picturing right there on the right part of the screen.
Yeah, exactly. That is in some of the Bible translations that they put like it's an elephant or a hippopotamus. And I ask people, I say, well, yeah, exactly. Does an elephant or a hippopotamus have this cedar tree? Look at that little dangly tail, right, of a hippo. And then right here, also he's big. He has bones like bars of iron. He's strong, huge tail. His nose pierceth through snares, which I believe means he can't be captured. He drinketh up a river. And he actually dwells in the swamps, which is really interesting because we get these ideas in our mind of Jurassic Park, these huge brachiosauruses walking on the green grass with the cattle or whatever. But I think he supported his weight in the water. And that's what the scriptures mention to us as well. And then, like you said, is it an elephant tail? That does not look like a cedar tree to me. Right. This would be more like the cedar tree of the great behemoth. He eats grass. His strength is in his hips. So I believe that was a dinosaur. That's the first reference. And here's my boys next to a Brachiosaurus femur and leg bones. I mean, they're such massive animals. And I think that would be the chief of the ways of God. I mean, they estimate some of the biggest ones were 60 tons. Just imagine that thing walking near you, right? And there's a car next to it. Oh, it'd be so cool. That's why people are so fascinated with these animals, because they're just not around with us now. That's Behemoth. This is one of my favorite parts because this is new information to me last year. Was it last year? And so this was a shock because the translation of Genesis 1, and I'm interested, Greg, if you've heard of this, the translation of great wells in right in the first chapter of creation. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, perfect. Cool. So I have a friend that sent me the article, and it was an unpublished article by a BYU professor who works in Jerusalem at the Jerusalem study. What do you call it? The Jerusalem Center. He's a professor of archaeology, and he writes an article about talking about the translation. And the word for great wells is Gedilim Tanim. I don't know if you say Tanin or Tanim, but now it's agreed upon by all scholars that the word does not mean well, but it actually means dragon or crocodile or some sort of a reptile. Tanim. I think the reason that it's translated as well is because the word Gedili means the largest or the greatest. It also means long, stretched out. So now we're referencing this long, stretched out dragon or reptile. And to me, I'm like, whoa, I think that could be referencing a dinosaur. Here
The Strong's reference, Tanin, dragon, serpent, sea monster, dragon or dinosaur, sea or river monster, serpent, venomous snake. Doesn't sound like a whale to me.
Yeah, that's what's so fun about this is because we're told that these dragons are myth. Every article you read about dragon, they'll say, of course, dragons are mythical, but this is really interesting. Of course, they proceed it with their bias, and it's so interesting. And so it's affected the translation of the scriptures. But Moses actually saw what he saw. He was trying to describe it, right? He beheld it, just like Job was told to behold Behemoth. And I have here, and I shared this last time, is the Origin of Man from 1909, from the first presidency. And in it, it says that Moses, the prophet historian, learned, as we are told, in all the wisdom of the Egyptians when making this important announcement, which is God created man in his own image, was not voicing a mere opinion, a theory derived from his researches into the occult lore of the ancient people. Because if you listen to academics right now, even religious ones, they're saying that Genesis is not to be trusted and that it's been really corrupted or whatnot. And it's based on Moses in the culture around him. Anyway, so they specifically say here, a theory derived from his researches into the occult lore of that ancient people. He was speaking as the mouthpiece of God. And his solemn declaration was for all time and for all people. The omnipotent creator, the maker of heaven and earth, had shown Moses everything pertaining to this planet, including the facts relating to man's origin and the authoritative pronouncement of that mighty prophet and seer to the house of Israel. And through Israel to the whole world is couched on this simple clause: God created man in his own image. So I believe he not only did he see that we were created in God's image, and he probably saw God and us created. He also, I think, saw dinosaurs. I love that. I love reading. I feel the spirit when I read that statement. I love it. So beautiful. Now people say, "Oh, this can't be. You're crazy. They lived millions of years ago. You're crazy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am crazy a little bit." So this is once again the Delk print, a little up closer, but you could see that is clearly a human print and a dinosaur print. And they took it to the hospital and had it CAT scanned. They stuck it in where you put your head or whatever, and verified that it was imprinted. And I have a page on that in the book. Get the book at dinosaursinscripture.com. I'm trying to mention it more. So this is the archaeology, and I want to bring in the biology and for the skeptics. And it's okay if you're a skeptic still. Anyone listening, please just research and look into this. So this is one of my favorite ones. And if you know me really well, I've showed you this video at least 10 times because this is really earth-shattering for our world, for science and for religion. Is Mary Schweitzer up in the Hell Creek Formation was transporting a femur from a T-Rex, and they couldn't fit the whole femur in a helicopter because it was too big. It was too heavy. So they cut it in half. I mean, these are rock, right? Once they're fossilized, they turn into rock. And they transport it, and she's got a biology background. So she's like, I want to play with it. So she puts it under a microscope and soaks it in acid first for a couple weeks. And she finds what's in there, and I'll play the video.
What happened next happened by mistake. Mary put some fragments of the bone in acid to dissolve away the outermost layer of mineral. but the acid worked too fast and all the mineral dissolved away. Being a fossil, there should have been nothing left. But there was, and it was elastic, like living tissue.
This is the piece.
So I just want to talk about how like shocked she was, right? She is so shocked. And I'll later tell you that she waited a year to tell other scientists. Like, why would she wait a year?
No. She showed us video she took under the microscope.
That's really what happened?
Yes.
That's the dinosaur
Yeah.
bone?
Without mineral now. That's what was left.
It looked like the soft tissue she would have expected to find if it had been modern bone. This was impossible. This bone was 68 million years old.
Right? This was impossible. And she also mentioned it was an accident because no other scientist would have ever tried it. Right? Because they thought they already knew these are millions of years old in their head, quote, unquote, knew. And so they wouldn't even mess with it.
So you see this and you think, what? You say
Didn't want to tell anybody.
that you'd be ridiculed,
Yeah.
right?
And so I said to my technician, okay, do it again. I don't believe it.
And yet, in sample after sample, they were there. Things that looked suspiciously like flexible, transparent blood vessels. She finally mustered the courage to tell.
Oh my gosh. So first of all, she's like, I don't believe it. Do it again. This is impossible, right? And she would be ridiculed. Why on earth would she be ridiculed? She's a scientist. What do scientists do? They make discoveries, right? And now she's going to tell Jack Horner, who's famous in the Jurassic Park movies for making the raptors move their heads like birds, because he believes they evolved from birds. Sorry, I'll keep going.
Jack.
She said she dissolved the bone away and there were blood vessels. And, I was like shocked. I mean,
How could that be?
how could that be? That's right.
The things Mary was finding inside dinosaur bones,
Look at that.
blood vessels, and even what seemed to be intact cells, pose a radical challenge to the existing rules of science, that organic material can't possibly survive even 1 million years, let alone 68 million. Mary, Jack, and their team published their B-Rex findings in a series of papers in the journal Science and were promptly attacked. Critics said their samples might have been contaminated, or that the supposed blood vessels were actually something called biofilm, a type of slime. But as Mary showed us, she's been able to replicate her findings. These are pieces of an even older dinosaur, a well-preserved 80-million-year-old duckbill. When she dissolved it away in acid,
Let's put this under the scope here.
well, look, is that a blood
This
vessel?
is a blood vessel. You see the branches right there? And look at all of them. And it's so consistent over and over and over again. We do this bone and it comes out and I get excited every time. I can't help it.
So I think I'll just stop there. But she gets, once again, she does it over and over again. So this is repeatable. So it's good science. Even though they all attacked her and thought it was biofilm, that's been completely debunked. And now there's a video of her now 10 years later. This was in 2005, speaking at North Carolina State. And she speaks about a group of scientists that are still attacking her in the press, even though they can't debunk her science. Now, I don't have a slide on this, but in the book, it talks about Mark Armitage, who's been studying soft tissues now for over a decade. And he's runs a company that does microscope technology and cells. Mark Armitage was studying soft tissues at California State, and he got fired a few years back. And there's a quote
Just because it goes against the narrative.
I think so, because his supervisor was quoted saying, "We won't tolerate your religion in here," and because he knows he's a young Earth creationist, and so he got fired, and he sued the university for religious discrimination, and they settled outside of court for $400,000. And this is a good time to mention the documentary called Expelled by Ben Stein. It's a beautiful one. And I have 17 QR codes in the book linking to different videos, but you can just get a free video on YouTube of Expelled. And he talks about what's going on in academia. Why aren't they teaching this stuff? Why aren't they pushing it? Like, everybody should know this. Like, Shane, had you ever seen this video of this
No.
soft tissue?
No, and I think like we should be okay to present other alternatives. And it's okay if somebody wants to believe in evolution. Like I allow them to believe that. I think they're crazy, but they probably think I'm crazy for not believing it. And I think that's okay. And we just have to be okay. But I think everybody should be able to have information presented to them so that they could make their own decision rather than universities or school systems trying to shove down the throats of our youth their narrative. Why is their narrative better or more important than, say, a young creationist narrative? Why can't we have a situation where both ideologies are presented and let people make up their own freaking mind? Why can't we just do that? And I obviously I know why, because the adversary he wants to suppress truth. He's the father of lies, and we've talked about that. But what we need to do now that we got YouTube, it's like, cool, we need to push the what we believe to be the true narrative out there, and shut up these academia numbskulls.
Absolutely. And that's a shame when they're trying to silence the truth, because they take the truth to be hard, because it will upend their narrative. And we actually talk about universities getting funding for evolution studies. And there's a pretty proud post from someone recently at BYU that said, since we've been teaching evolution, we've gained so many millions in additional funding, because that's what they support is evolutionary teachings, because everything they believe is evolution is the foundation of biology, and it's their full narrative that they're sharing, and it is discouraging. But just allow a free forum of thought, and that's what I'm all about.
Okay, back to your presentation. Do we have that up here?
And I did upload there the QR code and the name of the movie. I hope you can watch it, everybody. The amazing documentary. Ben Stein's funny, right? He's in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller. And there's actually a QR code. If you could show that QR code, you could just scan this. It'll take you straight to the YouTube video. So that's right out of the book.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Now, questions we already kind of discussed in the video, but why was she shocked? How can that be, Jack Horner? Because of this evolutionary, they put the theory before the data and the evidence, because they're always saying this is what we know, and then they think it's impossible. Why would she be ridiculed? Why would other scientists ridicule their peers? And she was nervous to tell anybody. And I'm not kidding you. She waited a year. She says that later in one of her interviews, a whole year to publish this amazing discovery.
Can you imagine? I mean, this is truth delayed because of fear and because of the ridicule. Truth is delayed. So there's so much more we probably could be learning right now, but because of how people have behaved, we're not getting it, or we haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah, and Joseph Fielding Smith in the 1950s published Man, His Origin and Destiny, that book, speaking heavily against the doctrine of evolution. And it's interesting to me that a lot of this evidence now is coming out. It's like the word of wisdom, right? It was given so long ago, and now we're learning about different things that are bad for your body by science. Now we're seeing the soft tissue. Now we're seeing the things that were revealed by revelation so long ago.
Yeah. And Jeremy, one of the things this brings up as I think about this, we got to be open as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that if maybe some of our false narratives or some of our cultural traditions of our fathers, that we find out like the truth on whatever that topic is, we got to be okay that there's quote unquote new science that helps us understand something a little clearer that we didn't understand. And I think that's the goal, is we have to be open all the time to new truth or more revealed truth, as we kind of go through this process of progression.
Absolutely. And science will always align. Good science will always align with the truth of the scriptures. And the truth is the truth. There is no shade of the truth. And that's what President Nelson said when he dedicated the Bean Museum. He said that science and religion are not in conflict when they are true science. And so I butchered that quote, but he did say that until they put the evolution display in there a few years after he said that quote, by the way. So here is, so why does it matter? Are you seeing the slide with the expelled and the soft tissue for Mark Armitage?
Is that what we're seeing?
I see red tissue, looks like.
Yeah, I see the soft tissue.
It says most important questions is a slide we see.
Okay. So this was supposed to be impossible. Once again, this is observable, testable, repeatable science, and historical science versus observational science is what we're kind of dealing with here. When people try to predict the future or tell what happened in the past, we are dealing with something that we can't observe personally that happened, right? So I can't be there back when the dinosaurs died and actually see it. It's like a crime scene. And so we rely on testimony with the historical, and they're also telling us what's going to happen to the world in the future. Global warming or climate change, and their predictive type science. Those are always open to error, huge error. But something that we can observe, like heart surgery, those are something that we can in real time learn and understand. But when you pick up a fossil out of the ground, people are like, that's another reason there's so much controversy around this topic, is because you pick up a fossil and everybody's guesses, how did it die? Did it reproduce? Did it evolve? And the only thing we know about that fossil for sure is that it actually died. But that's the beauty of the scriptures, is we are relying on eyewitnesses. If we, and that's what they do in the legal method of, and with forensic science, is you're going to go off an eyewitness. And we have eyewitnesses. We have Moses that saw it, and we have different people that saw these things. So, and that brings us into the dragon topic. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, when I started learning some of this information that I did not get in my multiple decades long public education career, I started learning, well, they didn't teach me that a crystal was formed in water in a high pressure temperature, silica dioxide rich environment. I had no idea that this was formed in water. I thought that was just reserved for rock candy. And I started learning different things and piecing them together. And it started to make me really upset when the pattern became obvious that not only was it not taught, but it was obscured and wiped out and suppressed actively. So if you have anomalies in a particular theory, it's supposed to be investigated, not eliminated. And there are so many anomalies that are just discarded to allow the lie of evolution to exist. It should be invalidated and should be kicked out of every textbook in America and every classroom, because it's not true. Let the truth come forward, but not this false narrative that is supported by basically evil designing men and women. Not very many, but there's enough.
Yeah, and not all scientists are in on it or whatever you would say. There's so many good scientists and some that are just drinking the Kool-Aid. And that's all it is. They're just simply drinking the Kool-Aid. And they are, is it a neophyte? Someone who just follows along. And they're lemmings in a lot of ways. And there is a bit of an echo chamber that takes place in academia, right? Because if you want to get your PhD, you're reviewed by a PhD. And I have a brother-in-law that's a professor. And you're reviewed by the same people that are going to review your information. And if they don't like it, they're going to kick you out, or you're going to feel uncomfortable. So absolutely. I think I want to share I'm going to share a few different slides now. I just have to figure out how to share this screen.
While you're figuring that out, this is one of my other rock specimens. Besides my petrified wood and my little shell fossil that I found in my front yard in Texas, where there's also fossilized shark teeth in creeks nearby, all sorts of fun stuff. Well, this one, particular one, is from Brazil. And if I had a good light, maybe this one will work on my phone. But I don't know, can you see this very well? Can you see it?
Is that in hydro with water?
Yes, uh-huh.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yours is a really great one. Look at that.
Can you see the water and the air pocket in there very well?
Now the light is obscuring it just a hair, but
Anyway, it's a beautiful polished specimen. It wasn't found that way, but it's got the quartz agate all around it, and inside there's just an air pocket with water included. How can something that we're told these rocks are formed over millions or billions of years under heavy pressure and tremendous heat, and they just crystallize without any solution? So, but how can you have water and air included in a quartz rock and not explode under the heat? Because if it's too hot and it doesn't have enough pressure, it's going to explode from the steam. So the mechanisms to create rocks were obscured. I took a college level geology course, and none of this was explained. My professor was just the dyed in the wool. Millions of years ago, the Cambrian and the other ancient processes are all forming. But I never heard water in the formation of rock at all.
yeah, it blows your mind, doesn't it? I mean, that's what I've got here. I've also got mine hydro,
Nice.
and mine has a little teeny drop, and I probably couldn't show it to you, but it's so small.
You guys are such nerds.
We are such nerds. And I actually have here a tooth of a Nanotyrannus. I paid a pretty penny for this, but one thing we'll talk about in our next presentation is how did they fossilize? Why are they buried in sedimentary rock? The matrix is always mud and sediment, always flood geology, right? And that's what's so beautiful. And I mean, we're just like kindred spirits here. The real MacGyver.
Well, Jeremy, man, I wish I know why I did not become an archaeologist now.
Why is that?
I think I've just presented it.
I was in the laboratory and I saw the specimen, the very first laboratory created petrified rock. It was just a little piece about this long and, that big around, but under pretty healthy pressure and temperature in an aqueous solution, the silicon dioxide, the dissolved sand basically went into the wood, and it was in hours, no more than a day or two, but it was in hours that it was created. It wasn't formula million.
Oh yeah, they're making diamonds now, real diamonds, right? In a days or a week. And the author of Universal Model made fossilized wood in 3 days. That's something that's never been done. And that's, I think, when David says, well, I know I'm not an archaeology, and he's kind of making fun of us a little bit. I didn't care about dinosaurs till I was 35 years old. And the truth rings true. It just is like, wow, this is true. And it's fun and it's exciting. And when science and religion and meet, and they're like, now the scriptures come alive, like Behemoth's walking off the page. And not only that, but I'm a child of God. It's real, guys. It's not just some story. And so fun. And then we align history. So I like to take history, archaeology, the scriptures, the prophets, and it all points directly to God. So let me show, this is the picture from the book, page from the book about the Delk print, how they had it CAT scanned, and you can see the impressions on it. But I want to show a few more evidence of dinosaurs living with man real quick, and then we'll probably wrap up, but because I've done a few more slides. But this is a carving in Cambodia. I call it the Tomb Raider Temple in Angkor Wat. And I've actually been there before, but I didn't know about this at the time. I went in 2012. I would have found it and taken a picture. To me, it looks a lot like a stegosaurus, right? Mm-hmm. And this one here is in our own Utah. This is a long-necked animal carved into the wall. And I said, I've got to go find this. So I took my family, this is a few years back when we only had 2 children. And I said, we went down below you can find it. Go to Kachina Bridge in Natural Bridges Monument. About a mile down, we hiked down below it, and I found it up on this cliff about 10 feet up. All these petroglyphs, and I couldn't get up because it was so high up. I put this log and these rocks there and tried to scale, and I scaled up that log, believe it or not. And I got up to the top and I couldn't get down. But sure enough, oh, that's a crooked picture. Sure enough, I found it carved into the wall. I was like, I have to know for myself. I'm not going to just listen to what they're teaching us. I want to know. And I got my own picture of it. It's kind of faded, but look, it's got a wing on it. We'll talk about that when we talk about dragons. This painting is in South America in the Amazon jungle. This long-necked animal and these people around it trying to either kill it or get it out of their village or something. So I ask people when I'm teaching parents and I'm flipping to this page, I'll ask the 4-year-old kid, what is that? I'm like, a dinosaur. They instantly know, right? And then this picture is a painting that I mentioned earlier by Peter Bruegel in the 1562. He's making it about the suicide of Saul in 1 Samuel when Saul has to commit suicide at the end of the battle. And they zoom in really close and they see these animals and people are riding on them. And I ask you, does that look like a camel? Because some people think it's just a camel.
Looks like Fred Flintstone.
It looks a lot like Fred Flintstone, right? And I like to say here that it's easier to fool people than convince them that they have been fooled. And that's what Shane tells us, is keep our hearts open and our minds open, right? Which I think is so important. Because there's so much evidence and so many pictures out there. I could go on all day, but as the history and the science and the scriptures line up to the truth, it's fun. And we put dinosaurs in the Garden of Eden with a little bit of help from AI, if you see this. Because it says in the scriptures, I, God, made the beasts of the earth and everything which creepeth. And so I'll ask people, I'm like, which animal did God not create? Did he not create the dinosaurs? Because he created everything. And maybe next time we'll talk about the tree of evolution and how they've got all these question marks and how they're like, well, we've got all these animals and they all evolved from this one fossil we found, but there's no connecting lines. And it's just literally such a theory made up. And so we won't get into the great dying or the mass catastrophe today. We'll probably do that next time. How did they die? When did they die? And my favorite question, did they all die?
I cannot wait for that. So Jeremy, I wouldn't be surprised we go to the temple here after some people watch these videos. Maybe they'll include, they're like the lion, the dinosaur. What if they did that? Wouldn't that be Jeremy, it would double Jeremy's weekly temple attendance. I already know right now. Actually, included dinosaurs.
We talked about this before, didn't we, Jeremy? Isn't there a dinosaur already in one of the temples?
Oh, yes. The Manti Temple on the creation room wall. Yeah. Let's see if I can find a picture of that one.
Oh, I love the Manti Temple. I'm so glad that they chose to keep it the way that it was. If you haven't been to the Manti Temple, go check it out. It's one of the most beautiful temples I think that's out there. It's really, really cool. I don't know if
we were going to
find that
just to go see the dinosaurs in the creation room.
I got a cool story as we kind of wrap up. Greg and I, MacGyver and I, we were down actually visiting with Dean Sessions, both dressed in just kind of street clothes. And I had this prompting that, hey, we need to go do initiatories in the Manti Temple. Greg looked at me. I looked at him. He's got jeans on and a t-shirt, and I've got, just street clothes on. And we went. We showed up at the temple. I think Greg actually had shorts on to make it even more pronounced. But we walk into the Manti Temple, scan in, and I say, apologize for us coming like this. We weren't planning on coming to the temple. We just felt prompted. We needed to come here. And they said, what are you here to do? And said, we felt like we need to come to initiatories. And they said, you wouldn't believe this. Greg, you remember this, right? They were like, we were literally praying. We needed 2 men to come so that we could complete initiatories. So we went in, they got us clothed, and we went and did initiatories. A very spiritual experience in the Manti Temple. So that's cool. So here's the Manti Temple. Okay.
Yeah, so they during the reconstruction renovations recently, there was a big dispute about, I mean, a bit of a personal story. My uncle's over the temple department, so he's kind of a big, kind of a big deal, right? He's literally helping build all the temples, and you can imagine how busy he is right now. But I texted him and I said, "Can we? Are you going to keep the murals?" And there's these Minerva Teichert murals in the other rooms, and there was a bit of a did they sign a petition like 4,000 signatures to keep the Minerva Teichert murals intact? And this was not one of them. And I could tell in the text he seemed a little annoyed that I would ask. I'm like, it's not about that. It's about and I didn't have the heart to tell him it's about this dragon, this long neck animal. Is there a closer up one? And then the bird there has no feathers. And it also has teeth, so it looks like a pterosaur. And then the long neck looks a bit like a plesiosaur or something. So kind of fun.
Yeah, you could kind of see the long neck right in the middle of the bushes, right on the bottom.
Yeah.
There. It looks like a little snake.
I love the murals in the temple. They're beautiful.
Yeah, it's one of the, it's really one of the cool temples. Very unique, very cool. I mean, they're all great, but there's a special place for some of these older ones. Well, Jeremy, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Shane, as you bring up the temple, that's one of the interesting things about this whole idea and topic is we can get endowed, when we're 18-ish, and we can go into the temple and learn of the creation. It's such a key point in the creation of Adam and Eve, the creation of the earth, such a key doctrine. But these youth, right, before from age 5 on, they're already being indoctrinated in the museums and in the schools. And so that's why we're hoping to teach children about this topic, and the dinosaurs appeals to them. And I mean, if families are reading the scriptures at home and bringing the testimony of the temple home to their parents and they're studying the creation, there's no problem. But get to the temple, those that are endowed. And I mean, I don't think that we're going to have any 6-year-olds watching this episode. So you can learn about the creation of the temple.
Totally. It's so important that's the creation is so important. That's why it's taught there in the temple. So Jeremy, thank you so much. This is interesting. I'm excited for part 3. So stay tuned because I want to learn what Jeremy knows about where they went. And I want to know if Jurassic Park is coming back. Can we bring him back? Maybe he's going to get into some of that stuff as well. But thank you, Jeremy, for coming on, for talking about evolution.
So happy to be here.
What a lie that it is, and that creation and God's plan and in the scriptures is where we should seek to know truth. The real MacGyve, thanks for coming on and showing us your nerdy rocks for a little show and tell. Really appreciate that. That was a lot of fun. And David, always a pleasure being with you. Hey, if you haven't signed up for the trip in Mexico, do it now. Spots are filling up. November 11th. It only costs $250 to reserve your spot. And right now, all expense paid for trips, only a couple $1,000. And it's going to go up October 1st. It's going up to $3,500. So secure your spot now. That way we can get you in at that price. But after October 1st, the price is going to go up to $3,500. We're excited. I'm really excited. We just did an episode with Lance talking about going to these Book of Mormon sites. So make sure you join us. It's going to be, I promise you, this is my money back guarantee. If it is not one of the more spiritual experiences that you've had in your life, my money back guarantee, I already know it's going to be one of the high level spiritual experiences of your life. I know that because I went out there, I experienced it. So I'm excited to experience it with you. Hey, if you like this video,
I want to go to Mexico, and maybe this will apply to other people. So I'll ask the question, what do we do? What kind of allowance is there with children? Because I have young children. What age could go? What are your thoughts on that?
We're totally open. I mean, I don't know how young a kid you want to be traipsing around with, but boy, we'd love to have some kids come along. I think it'd be a great experience for them as well. So we haven't set a limit on it. Probably young kids be kind of tough because we're moving around pretty good, but kids that can walk and talk and kind of wipe their own butt, I would say bring them along.
Because we'll be hiking temples and exploring the jungle and things like that. Sounds like a fun adventure. That's so cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for asking. All right. Listen, if you like this video, go ahead and smash that like button. Hey, share it. Hey, these are good videos to just even share with your kids, talking about what is evolution. So when they hear the lies in school, they can go like, my mom and dad already told me that this is a bunch of crap. I know what really happened. And so that's what we're trying to do here is educate the audience, and kind of expand our audience as well. So thank you for tuning in. This is totally different than a lot of the stuff that we talk about. And thank you so much for all of you who have supported Zion Media, who have donated. Literally, I have people showing up at my house, dropping off envelopes of money so that we can finish our studio. We're still a little ways to go until the studio is fully funded, but we're getting there. And so we appreciate every donation matters and counts. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. For myself, I'm Shane Baldwin. For MacGyver and David the Lion Douglas and our awesome guest, Jeremy, we'll see you guys all next time.